Hello, everyone who's listening right now. Welcome to Campus Exonerated. This is the Pre-Law Society of NJIT's first radio show. Topics are chosen by e-board members of PLS, but the host of this show is me, Liz Finnegan, who is the treasurer of Pre-Law Society. So I just wanted to mention that whatever comments I, the host, or any of our guests have on the show, it's not reflective of NJIT's thoughts on any political or legal going-ons, contemporary or historically. It is my opinion and my opinion alone or any of our guests. So for the first episode of today, we will be starting off by speaking about the situation regarding the Speaker of the House. I'm not sure if everybody knows, but 2 weeks ago on October 3rd, the past current Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, was booted out of his position in a historic movement by the House of Representatives because he was booted out during his term, which has never happened before. So I just wanted to speak about this because I think a lot of people don't have a lot of knowledge about like roles at the federal level, or they only like know it in passing. So like, what does the Speaker of the House even do? Like, do we even know that? Like, do we just know about, it's just a big name, they do something, they talk about it in the news. And I thought, well, it is a big federal position, and having someone kicked out of that position during their term is a pretty big deal, especially because it's never happened before. So the Speaker of the House has been around since the start of the United States. Position of the Speaker of the House is established in Article 1, Section 2 of the United States Constitution, which kind of just goes over that article. Section 2 just goes over the House of Representatives. It shall be composed of members chosen every second year by the people of the several states. And then only at the very end does it mention the House of Representatives shall choose their speaker and other offices and have the sole power of impeachment. So technically, the Speaker of the House does not actually have to be a current member of the House of Representatives, but historically, people have made sure that it is. And while people may vote for other people that are not, I believe a representative said he was going to vote for Donald Trump for the next Speaker of the House. So they're not necessarily required to be in the House, but historically every Speaker of the House has been an incumbent member of the House. So what does the Speaker of the House actually do? Like, it has the fancy title Speaker of the House, but does it actually like speak for the House? So the Speaker of the House is the presiding officer of the House of Representatives. They open the sessions, they maintain order during debates, and decide who may speak on the House floor. They also set the legislative agenda. So they decide which bills and issues will be considered for debate and vote. They work with the committee chairs and party leadership within the House of Representatives to ensure that certain bills like reach the floor. They appoint members to committees within the House of Representatives. They're typically the leader of the majority of the House of the party. They are kind of responsible for holding the majority party together and making sure there's like at least a unified front on most bills and positions. They represent the House. Obviously, they can cast tie-breaking votes. They administer the oath of office to newly elected members of the House, and basically are just the spokesperson for the House of Representatives. So they give press conferences, and they represent the House in various public events. They are also, in case of the president being assassinated or the vice president being assassinated, they would be third in line for the presidency. So I know when Donald Trump was still in office, I think he went under some operation, and the people were joking, we could have our first woman president if Nancy Pelosi just takes down Mike Pence or something. So that could have theoretically happened. But, so it's been around since the creation of the United States, and our first Speaker of the House was Frederick Muhlenberg, who was a founding father. He was the first signer of the Bill of Rights. He was elected as the first speaker, and then he played a significant role in establishing the early rules and like procedures of the House. And only one Speaker of the House of Representatives have actually become the United States president. That would be James K. Polk. He served as the 11th Speaker of the House from 1835 to 1839, and then became the 11th President of the United States from 1845 to 1849. And then after that tenure, he unfortunately died. But they are prominent political figures in Americans' lives, and they can go on to having other political careers. So, who was Kevin McCarthy, and how did he become Speaker of the House? So Kevin McCarthy has been a representative in the House of Representatives from 2007, which surprisingly is 16 years ago. He was first as a representative for California's 22nd district, which was renumbered as the 23rd district in 2013, and then as the 20th district in 2023. So he's a Republican from California, and has been serving as a representative for the past 16 years. He was the minority leader from 2018, when Democrats had control of the House. So he's been playing the field for a while. And McCarthy decided to throw in his hat in the ring after Republicans won a majority of the House in the 2022 elections. So he had been minority leader then, so it kind of made sense for him to throw his hat in the ring as, okay, I'm going to be the majority leader, aka the House of the Speaker. But McCarthy is considered to be like a moderate Republican. So several factions within the Republican Party had problems with him, especially far-right Republicans. So you may remember that back in January, which is when he was elected as Speaker of the House, there was also an historic events that happened there. It took 4 days for Kevin McCarthy to become Speaker of the House, which unfortunately, when electing the Speaker of the House at that beginning part of the Congress, they can't do anything else besides an elected Speaker, because the Speaker has to be elected in order to like swear in new members, etc. So it took 4 days and 15 votes to give Kevin McCarthy his role. And he struggled to win over these far-right Republicans, but eventually got them to come around by making concessions. Now, these concessions weren't like... Some of them were big, and one of them really came to bite him later, but a couple of them were just... there was a guaranteed floor vote to establish term limits for all House lawmakers, an open amendment process. It allowed new powers over federal agencies, and a 72-hour rule, which required a full 3 days to allow lawmakers to read bills before they hit the floor, which had been a problem prior in several terms when bills about COVID spending were just quickly passed, and people had problems with... They didn't know what was in the bill, and they had to vote on it. But then the other two major concessions that he made was because, like many Americans, Congress has a debt problem. And Republicans are eager to not raise the debt ceiling and go into more debt, which, good for them. Don't want to get America into more trillions of dollars debt. But McCarthy made a concession that if they were to raise the debt ceiling for other expenditures like Ukraine, sending aid, COVID, etc., he was going to be accompanying that by cuts to like Social Security and Medicare to balance that out. Which Democrats didn't really like, but the faction of Republicans that he needed to win over really supported this, and that was a big part of making them happy. The other one was previously Nancy Pelosi, who's the previous Speaker of the House, had changed the rule of making a vote of basically booting out a motion to vacate. So previously under Nancy Pelosi, motion to vacate, you could have one person, and she changed that to it has to be the majority of the House majority party. I had to agree on a motion to vacate the Speaker of the House. So like there's 200 odd Republicans in the House right now. They would have had to have the majority of people say, we actually don't want McCarthy in office anymore. We want to vote to vacate. But McCarthy had a problem keeping this rule. So he tried to get it down to 5 people, and the faction of Republicans weren't happy with that. So he eventually had to concede to one person doing a motion to vacate, which is what happened 2 weeks ago, that Matt Gaetz, a representative from Florida, did a motion to vacate McCarthy, and he was booted out of the House for that. So originally in January, there was a lot of concerns about this concession that people were going to threaten Kevin McCarthy, which is actually did happen during his tenure. So during his tenure, not to just focus on how his tenure ended, but whatever bills have passed in the last 10 months, roughly, he's put them to the floor. There's been 2 debt ceiling crises that he's resolved, one notably in May, which he did not cut spending to prevent that crisis, but Republicans didn't have the support to oust him then, so they just continued. McCarthy has been a supporter of President Trump, so he's expressed support to expunge both of President Trump's impeachments. And then in September, he did direct committees to begin an impeachment inquiry into President Biden, but that didn't go anywhere. And then, notably, why he was removed is because prior to October 3rd, I don't know if you remember, because the news cycle is just so vicious nowadays, we were again going to be running out of spending, and the government was forced to almost shut down. So McCarthy managed to approve a spending bill to keep Congress in motion. That passed without Ukraine funding, and which was a big problem that Democrats wanted. But McCarthy hasn't been a big supporter of just giving Ukraine a blank check, as he called it. So McCarthy actually said, after funding the government, if someone wants to remove me because I want to be the adult in the room, go ahead and try. So Matt Gaetz did file the motion, and the vote passed with 216 in favor and 210 opposed. So McCarthy was removed as Speaker, and this was the first time in U.S. history that the House of Representatives have removed its Speaker from office. McCarthy announced that he would not seek the leadership again, mainly because, he had such a problem making the vote in the first place, and then during his tenure, people weren't really happy with his leadership, and, if the majority voted to remove him from office, I don't think the majority would vote for him to get back into office. So right now, actually, 2 weeks later, the House has still been going on because when a speaker is removed from office, while this has never happened before, there is a safety plan in place, I guess you could call it. So currently we have a interim Speaker of the House, which is Patrick McHenry, I believe, who is a representative from North Carolina. So he has been presiding over the House of Representatives. So it hasn't stopped. They've still been doing stuff in the past 2 weeks, but they are still trying to look for a replacement. So right now, actually, in about 10 minutes, the House of Representatives is going back to the floor to try to vote in a new House Speaker. So currently, the Republican House nominee is Representative Jim Jordan, who is from Ohio. Jordan has been working for the past 2 weeks in order to get the votes needed for Speaker of the House approval. He's a more, people consider him to be a more far-right Republican than McCarthy, but he has been managing to get several key holdouts in the Republican Party to move onto his side. So it is looking like Jim Jordan will probably win Speaker of the House. maybe not today, but tomorrow, as a Republican is out of town right now. And I don't know if you know this, but representatives have to be in person to vote on bills, and just they have to be in person. So one Republican is out of town, and so he might have to wait until tomorrow. But in 10 minutes, they are supposed to be voting on it. So what does this whole thing mean for why would we care as college students, as American citizens, about this historic moment? And you may think, oh, this is a big, this is a level above me. I'm not really concerned about the federal government. They don't do a lot for me, or these party politics in which there's the two parties that don't get along, and then within the two parties there are several factions within them, and even they don't get along. And so even having the Speaker of the House debate on, you have to win these people over in order to become Speaker of the House, to even have a unified front on your own party. And you may think, I don't really care. And to be fair, I think a lot of people do hold that opinion. And I think, with how our daily lives appear in modern America, that's a opinion that I can't really refute. If you don't want to care, go ahead. But I think it is a historic moment that we have to look back at and think about, okay, what are the modern implications of this? We've never had a House Speaker removed before. We've never had a House Speaker that had to give so many concessions in order to win Speaker of the House. In modern times, at least, McCarthy's 15-vote roll call vote hadn't happened since before the Civil War. So in modern times, this could lead to, if there's still the concessions are made, and these things are kept in place, what would that mean for future Speaker of the House? So would their power diminish? So McCarthy had a lot of trouble passing things, putting bills into place, and having a united front of his party. So due to this, it's interesting to think, okay, the Speaker of the House, who's supposedly the third most probably powerful person in the United States federal government, or has this notability and recognition as a high political person, can be easily removed by his own party, just because he does something that they don't like, which is continuing the government's work. So Jim Jordan may become the next Speaker of the House, but will he retain it? And then after his tenure is done and the next Speaker is elected, will they retain it? So will we continue a cycle of voting out speakers if they don't follow a popular opinion at the time? Should Kevin McCarthy had not approved government spending and let the government shut down, is that part of his job to keep the government running? One should hope so. But it just puts, I suppose, more pressure on the Speaker of the House, and then I guess it should also put more pressure on the voters of these representatives. These representatives are playing a major role in federal levels and even world levels, giving spending to Ukraine and various other conflicts. And the United States plays a major role in global politics. Like Kevin McCarthy met with the president of Taiwan, and after that, China threatened Taiwan for about 3 days by moving military planes and boats within its waters. So it's not like these people don't have major power within the world and within the United States. So I guess it should reflect on if this position of power is going to be so easily changed within hands. Is that going to destabilize the government? What will this look like in the next several years? Hopefully, it doesn't. Maybe this will be a one-off. Maybe Kevin McCarthy's short-lived role as Speaker of the House will be the only historic moment. But unfortunately, I think in the past 20, 30 years, there have been a lot of historic moments, and people are like, oh, it's just going to be one thing, and then another historic moment comes along. So, this episode was just about, I suppose, reflecting on what you think you can do as a voter, and who you think you should support as your representatives. And if you have concerns about what the House of Representatives is doing, or how they are using their power, and maybe you should contact your representatives.